Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty incredible today. We're talking about the link between what we eat and how it affects our brain health.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area.
Really fascinating.
And it's remarkable how much control we actually have
Right.
over our brain's, well, development and function.
Yeah, and we're zeroing in on one specific protein called neuropilin-2.
Okay.
And I'm really excited to kind of dig into how this might be a key to unlocking like a new level of brain power,
Yeah.
especially for people who have, had some challenges with their brain health.
I think that's a really great way to put it, yeah. Unlocking potential.
Yeah.
That might be there.
So for those of us who aren't, neuroscientists, can you give us the neuropilin-2 rundown? What does this protein actually do in the brain?
Well, you can think of the brain as this network of electrical signals constantly firing, and we need balance in that network. So it's a delicate interplay between excitation and inhibition. Like too much excitation and things can go haywire. And this is really where neuropilin-2 comes in. It's crucial for developing the inhibitory circuits, the brain's braking system, I guess you could say.
So it's like a conductor making sure that the right signals are kind of getting through at the right time.
Precisely.
Okay.
It guides the migration of specific neurons during development, ensuring that they land in the right spots
Right.
to form those inhibitory pathways. And these pathways, they rely on certain neurotransmitters, and, GABA is a star player in all of this.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, I've heard of that one. So what happens when those inhibitory circuits are disrupted?
Yeah.
Or if there's just not enough neuropilin-2 to kind of guide the process?
Well, research suggests that disruption in these pathways, sometimes linked to neuropilin-2, can contribute to a range of challenges. We're talking about things like seizures, certain autism-like behaviors, and difficulties with learning and focus.
Wow, so that feeling of being overwhelmed or anxious or just, unable to concentrate, could that sometimes be linked back to these imbalanced circuits?
Yeah, it's definitely a piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
When those brakes aren't functioning the way they should, the brain can struggle to process information and regulate its responses.
Well, this is where the connection to diet gets really interesting.
Yes.
Right. So we might actually have some control over supporting these circuits through what we eat.
It's really an empowering concept. Emerging research suggests that a neural supportive diet
I like that. Neural support.
can play a role in optimizing these pathways. And because neuropilin-2 is so tied to GABA, the neurotransmitter that helps to calm things down in the brain, we can look to foods that naturally boost GABA activity.
Okay, all right. So hit us with the grocery list. What are these magical GABA boosting foods?
Well, I don't know about magical, but
Okay, fair enough.
but there are definitely some nutritional powerhouses to think about. So foods rich in vitamin B6 and magnesium are key for GABA production.
Okay.
So think leafy greens, lentils, nuts, even dark chocolate can play a role here.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
And then you have foods rich in glutamic acid, which is a precursor to GABA. Fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut are great sources,
Interesting.
as are bone-in meats and poultry.
Okay, so we're talking about a diet that's not only good for our gut, but also potentially good for these inhibitory pathways in the brain.
That's the idea.
I like it.
And it's not just about what we eat, but also how we eat. Nutrient timing and interactions can really significantly affect absorption.
Okay, so spill the tea. What kind of timing tips should we be aware of?
Well, for example, vitamin C can enhance iron absorption.
Okay.
So pairing iron-rich foods like spinach with a squeeze of lemon is a great strategy.
Okay.
On the other hand, calcium and iron, those compete for absorption, so it's best to space those out. So having your calcium-rich yogurt a couple of hours before or after your iron supplement or iron-rich meal can make a difference.
So it's like a delicate dance of nutrients.
Yeah.
Each one kind of needing its own stage time
You could say that.
to shine.
It all goes back to that intricate balance that we keep talking about, not just in the brain itself, but also in how our bodies absorb and use nutrients.
So this is starting to paint a really fascinating picture, but I have to admit, thinking about all these nutrient interactions can feel a bit overwhelming. Any practical tips for keeping it all straight?
Absolutely. One simple yet powerful strategy is to create a visual system for your pantry and fridge.
Okay.
Think clear containers, neatly labeled, with everything organized in a way that makes healthy choices easy and abundant. It's not just about practicality. It's also about promoting a sense of plenty. eliminating that feeling of restriction or scarcity that some people associate with healthy eating.
So we're talking about creating a space that visually reinforces those healthy choices, making it more likely that we'll reach for the good stuff, the brain-boosting options.
Exactly. It's about setting ourselves up for success by making those choices both appealing and accessible.
I love that. So this all ties into this broader concept of a neural supportive lifestyle,
Yes.
right? It's not just about isolated nutrients, but about creating an environment that supports optimal brain function from multiple angles.
You're exactly right. We need to think about blood sugar balance, keeping those energy levels steady
Sure.
throughout the day for optimal brain power.
And then there's that whole fascinating gut-brain connection, a whole world into itself.
Right. The gut microbiome plays a crucial role in neurotransmitter production, including GABA.
Wow.
So those probiotic rich foods and that fiber that we talked about earlier, they're doing double duty, supporting both gut health and brain function.
It's incredible how interconnected everything is.
Hmm.
And of course, we can't ignore those classic lifestyle factors. Sleep, stress management, exercise, all crucial for supporting these neural circuits.
Absolutely. These are foundational pillars
Yeah.
of a neural supportive lifestyle, and we
Yep.
can dive deeper into those a little bit later. But first, let's explore some real world scenarios
Okay.
where understanding neuropilin-2 and the power of a neural supportive diet could have a profound impact.
Okay, I'm ready for those real world examples.
All right. Let's start with a potentially controversial one, correctional facilities. What if we applied this neural supportive approach in prisons? Could it contribute to reduced aggression, improved emotional regulation, and, better rehabilitation outcomes?
That's a bold idea. I mean,
That's
it's easy to imagine the logistical and financial challenges, but what about the potential benefits? Is there any research to support that?
There's a growing body of evidence
Okay.
suggesting that nutrition plays a significant role in behavior and mental health.
Okay.
So imagine a prison environment where inmates are provided with nutrient-rich meals that specifically support their brain health,
Right.
taking into account those GABA boosting foods we talked about.
Yeah, I mean it's not a magic bullet, of course,
Yeah.
but it could potentially create a more conducive environment for rehabilitation and positive change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need robust research and careful implementation, but the potential benefits are certainly worth exploring further. And there are already some success stories and pilot programs out there that show promise.
This is definitely making me rethink the role of nutrition in these settings. Let's shift gears a little bit to another population where this approach could be really transformative.
Okay.
Foster teens. They've often experienced trauma and instability, which we know can have a significant impact on brain development.
And this is where sensitivity and awareness are really, really paramount. We can't just impose a dietary change on teenagers who may have complex relationships with food,
Right.
especially those who've experienced food insecurity.
Yeah, so no pressure tactics or making them feel like they're being fixed with a new diet.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
It's about empowerment, not control.
right,
We need to meet them where they are,
right.
acknowledging their individual needs and preferences, and creating a positive and supportive environment around food.
It's fascinating to think about how a neural supportive approach could potentially help these teens build resilience and create a more stable foundation for their future.
Yeah. The anecdotal evidence is promising, and while there's no widespread implementation yet, there are individual cases and pilot programs exploring this concept.
Okay.
Imagine a foster family sitting down to a delicious meal where everyone enjoys the same healthy, brain-boosting food.
It's a really powerful vision of how food can bring people together and nurture both physical and emotional well-being. But before we get too carried away with these larger scale applications, let's bring it back to the individual listener.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture.
Yeah.
But ultimately this knowledge is most powerful when it's applied to our own lives.
Exactly. So for someone listening to this right now, what does this all mean for them?
That's a great question. And I think the answer lies in cultivating curiosity instead of viewing this as as a rigid set of rules or a daunting task. Approach it with a sense of exploration and discovery. What sparks your interest? What are you curious to learn more about?
Yeah, it's like turning healthy living into an adventure rather than a chore.
Exactly. And remember, there's no one size fits all approach. What works for one person may not work for another. It's about finding what resonates with you, what feels good for your body and your mind.
So ditch the pressure to be perfect.
Yes.
Embrace the journey and start experimenting.
That's the spirit. And to help guide that experimentation, let's delve into some specific strategies and resources that our listeners can use to personalize this approach and make it their own.
Okay, I'm ready for those actionable takeaways. Let's empower our listeners with the tools they need to create their own neural supportive journey.
We'll dive into all of that after a quick break. Stay tuned.
As we were talking about those real-world applications of a neural supportive diet, I was thinking about how much potential there is to make a difference. Like not just for people, but for, communities,
Yeah,
like as a whole.
it's exciting, isn't it? We talk about food as fuel, but it's so much more than that. It's information, it's building blocks, it's literally shaping our brains.
It is. And it's to think that we have some control over that it's empowering, but also a little daunting, you know.
I agree. It really highlights how important it is to make good choices about what we eat, not just for our physical health, but also our mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, for sure.
But don't worry, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Even small changes can make a big difference. You
Yeah.
don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight.
Small steps, big impact, right?
Exactly.
I like that.
Exactly.
Speaking of small steps, we talked about lifestyle factors like sleep, exercise, and stress management. Can we dig into those a little deeper? I'm always looking for, practical tips to use in my everyday life.
Let's start with sleep. It's so foundational for so many things our brains do. Consolidating memories, clearing out toxins, restoring energy.
Yeah.
We all know we should get enough sleep, but how many of us actually do?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I'm definitely a night owl, so I often sacrifice sleep for work or social things.
Yeah, it's a common problem, I think, especially in our fast-paced society. But here's a challenge for you. Tonight, try setting a bedtime alarm.
Interesting.
Treat it just as seriously as you treat your morning alarm. Create a calming bedtime routine. No screens for an hour before bed, a warm bath, maybe some relaxing music or a
And
book.
I love that. Yeah, it's so easy to just, get on your phone, but those screens are definitely not helpful
Right.
before bed. What about exercise? I'll admit I'm not always motivated to hit the gym.
Yeah, me neither. But here's the thing. Exercise doesn't have to be a chore.
Okay.
Find something that you enjoy. Could be dancing, hiking, swimming, even a brisk walk in nature. The key is to move your body and get your blood flowing. It's good for your physical health, but it's also a brain booster.
Okay. That makes me feel better about my gym attendance or lack thereof. Now, stress management, that's a big one. Life is stressful, period.
You're right. Stress is a part of life, but it's how we manage it that really matters.
Okay.
Start by just being aware of your stress triggers.
Yeah.
What are the situations, people, or even thoughts that kind of set you off? Once you know what they are, you can start coming up with strategies to either avoid them or manage your response to them.
Like know your enemy, right?
Yeah.
Once you understand it, you can build up your defenses.
Exactly. And those defenses can be lots of different things. Deep breathing exercises, meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones,
Right.
experiment and find what works for you, what makes you feel grounded and calm.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the power of just saying no.
Right.
Setting boundaries is essential for protecting our mental and emotional energy,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Sometimes self-care means, prioritizing yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes the most supportive thing we can do for our brains is to just
Great advice.
Yeah.
Very applicable to my life for sure.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to those real-world applications we were discussing earlier. We talked about correctional facilities and foster teens, but what about other groups that could benefit from a neural supportive approach? Where else could this be helpful?
Oh, the possibilities are really endless. Think about schools. Imagine a curriculum that includes nutrition education and mindful practices from a young age.
Right.
What if every school had a garden where kids could learn to grow their own food and really understand that connection between what they eat and how they feel?
Oh, I love that idea.
Right.
It would teach them valuable skills, but also empower them to make healthy choices for their job.
Exactly. And it's not just about kids. What about workplaces? Stress and burnout are so common these days.
Yeah, they are.
Could a neural supportive approach help with employee well-being and productivity?
Yeah, I've experienced workplace stress firsthand. And I know it can really affect my focus, my mood, everything. It makes sense that, incorporating these principles could create a more positive and productive environment.
Imagine workplaces that offer healthy food options, designated spaces for relaxation and mindfulness, and policies that actually prioritize mental health. It's a win-win for everyone.
I love that.
Happier, healthier employees
Yeah.
and a more productive workplace.
It's exciting to think about the ripple effects that this approach could have. I mean, we could see improvements in everything: mental health, education, community well-being.
It really is a paradigm shift. Instead of just treating symptoms, we're addressing the root causes of a lot of challenges we face, both individually and as a society.
Right.
And it all starts with understanding how our brains work
Right.
and what they need to thrive.
Yeah. Neuropilin 2 may be a tiny little protein, but it's really led to some big insights for us today. It's a perfect example of how the smallest things can sometimes unlock the biggest transformations.
I agree. It's a reminder that there's always more to discover, more to learn about how our bodies and minds work.
Yeah. I'm already brainstorming ways to try these ideas out in my own life, and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to do the same.
Me too. It's all about taking that first step, no matter how small it is.
This has been a really great conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about the connection between food and brain health and well-being.
Me too.
But
Yeah.
before we wrap things up, let's shift our focus to the individual journey.
Okay, that's a great transition. While it's great to think about these bigger applications, it's also important to empower each person listening to apply this knowledge to their own life.
So for someone listening right now who's intrigued by all this, but maybe feeling a little overwhelmed about where to start, what would you say to them? What's the first step on this journey to a more neural supportive life?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is to just be curious. Instead of thinking of this as a rigid set of rules or a really big task,
Right.
approach it with a sense of exploration and discovery. What are you interested in? What are you curious about?
It's like turning healthy living into an adventure, not a chore.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And remember, there's no one right way to do this. What works for one person won't work for everyone. It's about finding what works for you, what feels good for you.
So ditch the pressure to be perfect, embrace the journey, and start experimenting.
That's it. And to help you do that, let's talk about some specific strategies and resources that you can use to personalize this approach.
Okay, I'm ready for those actionable takeaways.
Oh.
Let's give our listeners the tools they need to create their own neural supportive journey.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to give you some tools to make this neural supportive lifestyle your own.
It's all about personalization, right?
Right, yeah. So where do we begin? It feels like we've covered so much.
Well, a good place to start might be with a self-assessment. Think about your current diet and lifestyle. What are you already doing well? Where could you use some support? Are there any areas you're particularly drawn to?
So instead of changing everything at once, focus on one or two areas that feel relevant to you.
Exactly. Maybe you're already good with exercise and sleep, but your diet needs work. Or maybe you're interested in mindfulness to manage stress.
Okay.
Choose one or two areas and then break those down into even smaller steps.
Smaller steps. I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's picked their diet to work on. What are some practical steps to start incorporating these neural supportive foods?
Well, one fun way to think about it is like a culinary adventure. Instead of focusing on what you're giving up,
Right.
get excited about trying new things, new ingredients, new recipes,
Right.
explore different cuisines, experiment with spices, discover new ways to prepare those brain-boosting foods.
So turn healthy eating into an adventure, not a chore. I love that. And remember what we said about organizing your kitchen. Making those healthy choices visible can really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. When you see all those colorful fruits and vegetables, those grains and legumes,
Well,
it's just easier to reach for them.
It is. Another thing, I think, is to really tune in to your body's signals. Pay attention to how foods make you feel, both physically and mentally.
It's such a good point. We're all different, and what works for one person may not work for another. Keep a food journal. Track your energy levels, your mood, your focus,
Okay.
and see if you notice any patterns.
It's like becoming a detective of your own body.
Exactly. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. There will be good days and bad days. Just be kind to yourself and focus on progress, not perfection.
This has been so eye-opening and empowering. I feel like I have a new understanding of how to, take care of my brain and create a life that supports my well-being.
Me too. It's really incredible how much power we have. When we understand this connection between food, lifestyle, and our brain health.
We've explored a lot today, but it's just the beginning. There's so much more to learn and to try.
Keep those brains curious, those kitchens full of good food, and those hearts open to the possibilities of this neural supportive life.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep nourishing those amazing brains of yours.